score! And they finally kicked it through!
We welcome you once again to Inside LAFC, the Maxim Vince podcast MVP special MLS Cup edition. We will be here all week. We will be covering every drop of LAFC Philadelphia Union at Banc of California Stadium with Vince LaRosa. I am Max Breto. So we'll be here at Performance Center to get you all the latest on the club. We will talk about every angle with this team. We will preview. We'll even get some predictions, I'm sure, at some point. And wherever it is, this is MLS Cup. I can't believe it's actually here, but it is. It's a little surreal. I know we're going to get a lot more excited the closer Saturday gets, but I'm already excited right now.
It's ramping up.
Yeah, you feel it.
It's only Tuesday, but it's like slowly ramping up. You can start to feel it. The lights are on, as they say. It's getting very bright around here. I'm going to try. You know what I'm going to try to do, since we're going to be so much in and around the team? Maybe one of the players let me just stay at their house.
That's a great
idea.
See
how it's going.
Embedded.
But no, this is awesome, and I got to give a little credit to Sarah Takata, who was head of broadcast for LAFC. When we were talking on Sunday, we were like, okay, MLS Cup, what do you want for the podcast? She goes, let's do a podcast every day. And immediately in my head, I was like, that's the answer. That's what you should be doing. So instead of just one podcast for you guys, we're going to have at least 4, maybe 5. I don't know. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. You're going to be sick of us by the time of this. But we got to bring you everything leading up to this because it's MLS Cup final.
It is MLS Cup final, the first for LAFC. Remember what Adrian Healy said when Diego Rossi scored against the Seattle Sounders in the first game? You'll never forget your first, and you won't. And it's only
I like that you forgot that line.
I did?
You always remember your first. Oh! Broadcaster, Adrian's going to call you and go, how dare you, Max? I know all your calls verbatim.
Adrian's really good at turning phrases, so that's not his first. It won't be his last.
I think he wrote that one down before, right?
May have written that down, and that's fine. Well,
the delivery was good enough that it didn't matter. But there's somewhere you can tell somebody writes it down, and you go, hey, you had that in your back pocket.
Famous call in LAFC legend and lore. And remember, the Western Final was Sunday, so this is 6 days. And I remember I was telling you, wouldn't it be great if we had 2 weeks? And I slept on it, and I go, it wouldn't, because I remember when I worked at ESPN, and we had Super Bowl week, and into that second week, you're like, what do you want to cover? And I'm like, I don't know.
Right. It seems good at the time.
Cam Newton's underwear. I don't know. I have no idea. Tom Brady's Uncle Steve, who has a junkyard in El Segundo. That was actually Sanford and Son. But it doesn't matter. I had no idea what to cover that second week. Tom Brady's uncle does not have a junkyard in El Segundo.
No, I just love that our references are so outdated.
That's a dangerous game to play.
They're outdated, but they're like you. Sanford and Son's even too old for you.
Still airs on TV Land.
I blame it's the music we like.
Yes.
We're eclectic music guys. We do like modern music, but we definitely go deep cuts.
Like the Sanford and Son theme song. Everyone knows who Sanford and Son is, Red Fox.
One of my favorite albums that I have
LA
is
legend.
Sun House album. That's deep
You're
cut.
Going way back.
Sun House is. You like blues, acoustic guitar blues, Sun House.
Hey, we'll incorporate that into the show. Vince's musical tip of the day. But we're here in glorious Eastern Los Angeles. We're going to have a lot of special guests pop in to talk about MLS Cup, talk about getting there. Today, as we'll get those guests here shortly, today we're going to talk about how we got here and what happened on Sunday. And we'll preview a little bit MLS Cup. We've already said it on LAFC 360. Mm-hmm. Check that out on 110 YouTube.
Good episode.
Great episode. I've already called it the biggest MLS Cup final ever. So we'll preview this. It's worth the extra time because of the teams. Mm-hmm. They have both been elite over the last few years, and now they both make their first MLS Cup final on the same year. The personalities, the coaches, everything is it's a nicely played. This is what you hope for when you cover this league. We don't always get it. It's an MLS Cup, so it's always big, but this one's a little bit extra.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm racking my brain to kind of think like what all the like kind of bites you need, all the cuts you need, and like you said, great coach, 2 young coaches with interesting ideas. We got
with
that.
A very high ceiling about where they're gonna where they go next.
1 versus 1, we've got that. What I'm trying to think is obviously LAFC always have star power. Who would you say is the number 1 star on Philly? And they have very good players. I don't want to. I'm not saying discounting that, but when you talk about star power, it's more like the guy walks down the street. Anyone could say, "I know that guy."
Probably Andre Blake because he's 6'3".
Yeah.
Statuesque.
Probably the most well-known player for them.
But yeah, it is a collective Philadelphia. But then so's LAFC. They have the star power, but it's like everyone's contributing. You don't see that all the time.
It's two very good teams.
Two very good teams. So we're excited. It's going to be a great game. I think we're guaranteed goals. You made a great point, which we'll talk about. These two teams have a distinct style, and they're going to stick to it. They're not going to adjust. They're not going to say it's a final, let's park the bus, or whatever. We're not going to be different. We're not going to get cute.
Mm-hmm.
If we see that, it would be weird. These are two teams that know who they are.
I would say that's another just feather in the cap of why this, when you keep stacking it up, why this is going to be, as you put, MLS Cup final, best MLS Cup final ever, is that. If styles make fights, these two teams definitely know their style, and it's like we have plan A, plan B is actually to do plan A even better. So that I think that makes for a great matchup, especially in a one-off, right? It's not a series. It's not like you have time to wait, we'll hold stuff in reserve for the second leg. No, it's all got to be laid out right there, and you might as well go with what got you here.
What got us here was, please rate, review, download, subscribe here, 110 Football as well. Check them out, but check out the podcast here. Also the video component, which you're probably watching right now.
It's a good week to subscribe if you haven't already.
Yeah, subscribe. And listen, when this is over on Saturday, there's a lot to look forward to in 2023, and we'll keep it going. Obviously, CONCACAF Champions League, and the new season starts in February. So
when this is over, Max and I get stuffed into a little cupboard, and we go away like groundhogs.
Little cupboard. Crawl up in a cupboard. But how did we get here? A 3-0 victory over Austin FC.
Should have been 4.
Should have been 4.
Still don't understand why that was offside.
This was, I don't want to toot my own horn, but toot on the 110 Football YouTube show, I said it was going to be a 3-goal victory for LAFC.
You said 4-1, which
4-1.
Which a lot of people are screaming, mostly Austin fans, that they deserved a penalty. So, Max, I think you would have been right. So if we, on the balance of things, Bouanga's goal should have counted. Sure, you guys can have a penalty if you'd like. 4-1.
This was but I don't think it took a lot to see it coming. This was a triumphant LAFC coming off of the Galaxy, having that extra time to have a full practice, make it feel like a normal week, which they did. Austin FC punching above their weight all season, had a great campaign, had to play 2 playoff games to get here, and then awaiting them in LA, having to make the trip after being in the very friendly confines of Q2 Stadium. They ran into a buzzsaw, and LAFC, we said, I didn't know for sure, but I had a good feeling, maybe we'd see the best LAFC we've seen all season, and maybe with the exception of something that's ailed them about finishing great chances, which they left some food on the plate, they were magnificent. And even with the missed chances, they had 3, should have had 4. We need a better explanation on that disallowed Bouanga.
Yeah, buzzsaw might be the best reference as we get a helicopter. That's probably for MLS Cup final.
Yeah, look at that. There's a guy hanging out of the helicopter. Is that Rogan Dino? No, it's not.
But you're right. So they got the 2 games at home. They probably were confident. I know Felipe, your new favorite player. If
I got heat with Felipe.
If there's an MLS celebrity boxing match, it has to be on that card. Has to be Max Bretos versus Felipe.
You want to see that? I would probably kick my tail, but I want to taste.
Yeah, we'll give you a few months to train. Get ready.
Jake Paul on the phone.
The Cuban Hammer versus Felipe. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. But then they came in pretty hot. They came in maybe a little too high on their own supply, and literally from minute 1, it was just right into the buzzsaw, because that's what LAFC did. It was, I'm telling you, it was one of those things where even though they didn't get their goal until the Chicho's header off the set piece, and they did create quite a lot of opportunities that maybe they left a little bit too much to be desired and should have finished them off. But I came into the game nervous because we're one step closer to MLS Cup final. But within 10 minutes, I was soothed. Yeah. Just soothed by the way that LAFC was just suffocating Austin. They would not let them out of their own half. Austin definitely had a game plan to, if they were going to build, and LAFC, as they like to do, will kind of bisect the field and put you to one side or the other. They thought, okay, if that happens, guys, be ready to make a switch immediately, an early switch. Every time they did that, Cheeky or Ryan Hollingshead stepped up into the play. They won the ball. They controlled the space. They definitely kept it very tight. And honestly, Austin's only refuge was to send long balls to Giorgio Chiellini and Jesus Rio, who just ate them up all game.
And they said, we'll send it right back over your head.
Right.
The one thing, and we go back to the Galaxy game, is what was different about this LAFC team, which you could see the growth, is they are really unflappable. Even with conceding 2 leads to the Galaxy, they just kept going. I just viscerally watching that team, play the Galaxy if we go back to there. And this is same applies to Austin FC, to the team that played Austin in the regular season and LA Galaxy the first time in the league game. Once they saw some adversity, they panicked. They were looking around. Even when they faced some adversity and very minimal adversity in Austin, just missing some chances early on, they just kept going and kept going. And we spoke to Ilie Sanchez here, and he said it. That's how we are approaching this. Our heads are clear. We know what's at stake. We know we can do what we're capable of. And it's one thing to preach it, but they practiced it. And in both these games, you saw that. No panic, just championship medal type squad.
It's the tenor of their head coach. I remember when a couple games went wrong, we get a few fans that say to me, you know what, I want Steve to be jumping up and down, screaming and yelling at the guys. I go, yeah, but what does that do? To me, that's just theater at that point. Like, if the game's gone wrong like it did in Austin, you kind of pack it in. You say, hey, we weren't good enough this week. We got to get back next week and get back into the rhythm, get back into the way we play. And it's like Ilie says, the message is clear. Steve doesn't talk a ton. He says the message is clear. We all know what we're doing. And then from time to time, when we maybe aren't doing the right thing, he's very sharp and direct with his communication and gets us right back in line. So it's like you don't have to be a screamy and yelly, over-controlling when you know that everyone is on the same page, which they seem like they are, both in the game plan, I would say even in the celebrations. Like the way they celebrated this, they kind of arms up, like we're going to MLS Cup final, let's raise the trophy, all right, back to the locker room. Because we know there's one more to go. And everyone just keeps saying one more to go. After the Galaxy game, 2 more to go. Like, everyone is on the same page. And that comes from the top.
It seems a bit cliche when you say that, but it's not. Because they practiced it with the trophies. I don't want to say muted celebration. They enjoyed the moment. It's got to be very fulfilling. But it was just a business to go, this is unfinished business.
It's like raise it, on to the next.
It was. That trophy presentation was like, hey, I got emotional watching it, and I really enjoyed it. But I think I enjoyed it by and large because it was quick. It was like, oh, where is this? And that's what you want to see as a fan.
I got a little teary-eyed.
I got emotional the second time I watched it, which is crazy.
When they were passing it around in like the 80th minute and the Olays started going, and you just kind of saw Austin was like, we've been beaten, except for Felipe and Maxi Urruti, who were like, we're going to take every chunk out of these guys that we can. But I got a little
I got emotional from watching Carlos Vela's reaction. It must have been very fulfilling because he
wanted to take it to the north end. He was like, do we have to do the thing right here in midfield? Let's go out there.
He should have done an audible. But the last 2 years were hard on Carlos Vela. Remember, his contract situation wasn't really sewn up, so we didn't know. We were having these conversations. We don't know. To see that, the guy who was here from the beginning, the original LAFC player, to be able to do that, and the fans obviously respect and love him, and to share that moment was really special for me. And it takes you back in time, and you put yourself selfishly in that situation where you started, and you're like, and we talk about this to the supporters. It's very special. We've been here from the beginning to be there and say, and even if you came a year late, this is still the beginning. You could come in now, this is still the beginning. But come in from that very beginning point and see where it's grown.
He's the cornerstone.
Yeah.
He really is.
We all are attached to Carlos in some way.
I mean, you and I have talked about it. Like, he's the first number 10. He's the cornerstone. Like, when he leaves, and somebody will come back through, and it's one of the things I like about this sport is the fact that we don't retire numbers. But the next player to come through and wear number 10 is going to be a heavy, heavy jersey to put on.
Shirt is so heavy. It weighs, which it should.
Did you have
Carlos was tremendous, by the way.
Carlos was very good.
Both corner kicks that led to the first goals. You could say it's an own goal, but, man, I thought Austin were just in disarray, defending, that a mistake was going to happen, and that's where it happened.
Yeah, I was going to say, so we've already kind of talked about the LAFC's ability to step up. In the first playoff game against Galaxy, first half they weren't able to do that. But to your point, they were able to say, we understand the game at hand. Let's play the game that's here. Let's not try to push things in a way that will open us up or allow us to be open to chances. And that was the right thing to do. Second half, I thought, was a much better half, and they were able to step up. But this Austin game, from minute 1 to minute 90, it was just, they were in Austin's half the entire time. There was a little reaction from Austin, I think, to start the second half when they were able to get a couple corners, and that's not LAFC not being able to step up. It's just when the team gets a couple corners, it slows the game down, and that's where you have to be really, really focused, because that's where teams can get back into games, set pieces. If they were to give up a set piece there in those first 10 minutes, very different complexion, but they didn't, and then LAFC went right back to work and just buzzsaw, cranked up again. The energy that they showed, I thought that was great, and then I want to add the off-the-ball movement, and Carlos is a part of that.
It's all good.
Every time that a midfielder had a second to look up, Bouanga and Carlos were just terrorizing that back line of Austin, which, might I add, you and I pointed out, if there's one thing that Austin maybe didn't have going for them, back line was a bit pedestrian.
Yeah. You called it, man, and especially the fullbacks, and that's where they went, and that's where they found a lot of space. It was Denny Bouanga on the goal by Mahala. It was Bouanga just harassing Gallagher. He moved this way, and he moved. And he's like, get out of my face.
It's like back checking in hockey, just really getting at him.
So annoying in a good way. Gallagher hits it, pops in the air, bounces right in the path of Mahala. But that was in the end of the game. And offensively, they were excellent. You said in the transition. Defensively, they were so good. Sebastian Driussi, who you could argue is
was he there?
The best player. He wasn't here. He reminded me of that meme by John Travolta from Pulp Fiction where he's like looking around, looking for the ball. There was
no angles for service. I saw them
completely taken out of that game. We only saw him when they did like a courtesy shot to show, hey, there's Sebastian Driussi.
I saw the pass map after. Did you get a chance to take a look at the Austin pass map?
But
so the pass maps, it's like a matrix of the passes, and you see the average positions. And normally they have lines connecting the players, and the thicker the line means the more passes that have gone to them. Austin had multiple players that had zero lines going, multiple forward players that had zero lines going to them. Yes, they touched the ball in moments, but it had to be a recovery or a mistake by LAFC. They could not pass out the back. And that just is another testament to how much they suffocated them and really just threw their build-up out of whack.
Austin did not register a shot on target until the 80th minute.
And it was a set piece, and it was a center back. Cascante had 3 of their 6 shots, and their only shot on target. Driussi had 1 shot way wide off target, about 35 yards out.
Cascante was
not a recipe for success.
Cascante was their best offensive player. If you say that after the fact, you know you're going to win.
Yeah,
you know you're going to win, and LAFC did that with relative ease. And now they go to their first MLS Cup. I like the muted celebration because it's a business trip now, even though it's not a trip.
Best part.
That's the best part. And achieving the supporter shield really changed everything because we knew it would be different this year because LAFC and Philadelphia, for that matter, were so good at home that LAFC, even having to get the supporter shield, and it's great to get that. It's great to qualify for the CONCACAF Champions League. And sometimes lost in that as you get home field advantage because it's not taken so seriously because no one advances it. This is the first time in 19 years the 1 versus the 1 made it to MLS Cup, which is stunning because any other sport that's happened at least every 3 or 4 years.
Right.
So this one's catered to chaos. LAFC overcame that, but that, I think, shows what a special team it is. Now, keep in mind, if Denny Bouanga doesn't score that goal in Portland, they win the West. We're packing our bags probably tomorrow to go to Philadelphia. Philadelphia never lost a game at home all season. So all the details, every step in this path mattered.
So what you're telling me is the regular season does matter.
Does matter. At least this year it did.
But the best part is...
I might see more of this moving forward because I think that ruling class is taking it very seriously.
Will we? Because aren't they already floating that there's going to be possible changes to the playoff format?
Yeah. They want 30 games as opposed to, 13. So they
I understand wanting more inventory.
Contracted a lot of the playoffs. You should have a bigger playoff. This playoff is an absolute sprint. But you got to protect the top seeds if you're going to expand it. And we'll see if that's...
Yeah, doing a World Cup. As much as I'm actually, and this is now off topic, into what The Athletic has reported that they want more games, more value for this time of the season because it goes so quick. And the idea that they're floating is a World Cup style tournament where you play some group games and then you move on to single eliminations. I'm actually not against that. I'm down. Like MLS already does everything very different from the rest of the world, so why not have different playoffs? But it's just like you've toyed with the playoffs so much, and then this year you finally seem to get it right, and we're already talking about how we're going to change it again. If
your new primary broadcast partner wants more playoffs and they're going to pay for it, you got to do what they say. So I don't think you direct this at MLS, and maybe you do things differently, and maybe it's just the season becomes one big playoff. We already have the Leagues Cup that's going to be a World Cup style format, so maybe they're onto something. I'm fine with the expansion like you are, and playoffs are good, and maybe you shorten the regular season, which a lot of times is criticized because the games don't feel as important, which they're not in many ways, although this year was a little different. We can pinpoint something in every regular season game, I think, for LAFC to how they got here. But you got to protect the teams at the top. And I think this year will go a long way there because MLS is going to have a showpiece event that they should go to Apple and say, look at this. This is what we want. This is great. Look at the personalities. Hopefully the numbers and the people that viewed would certainly fall into place as well. But this is, I've watched every MLS Cup final, I think, from the beginning. I've been in 15, 16 of them. And
wow.
Some of them, I shouldn't have admitted that.
Man, I've been
maybe
to,
not that many, maybe 12 or 13.
I've been to a couple, but man.
Yeah, I was there in Kansas City when Sporting played Real Salt Lake. You'd sub-zero weather. So many games that you were like, this was nice, but who's noticing? This is going to get noticed.
You were at were you at the Rapids FC Dallas?
I was. That was my first year at ESPN. It was in Toronto, and that was the game that changed
the trajectory of the playoffs.
We can't have this anymore.
Yeah.
You had Rapids and
that was a tough
Dallas
watch.
Playing in Toronto. I think that's all you need to hear.
A tough game and a tough watch.
Yeah, it was two teams that didn't expect to be there.
Yep.
So they played in that way.
Mm-hmm.
You want the Super Bowl to be big. You want the World Series to be big. This is MLS Cup. It's big. We're going to preview that a lot more.
Yes.
Anything we left out
we've
about
got a
Austin?
whole week. I think the only thing we left out maybe is just the substitutions.
Oh, yes. That goes back to Steve Cherundolo and how well he reads the game. The ESPN broadcast, didn't mean to interrupt you, Vince, but the MLS broadcast, and I have to give Taylor Twellman a text here. They weren't happy about the substitution early with Chicho coming out for Mahala. And then Vela, who had a yellow, would come out. Mahala would score. Sebastian Ibeaga, they did report it was a tactical move. Sebastian Ibeaga, who was, he came here, diminished minutes, obviously down the pecking order when you look at all those center backs. Was probably told to keep working hard and you'll get a minute. He gets to go into this game. Had a really good performance. Was involved in that penalty, but wasn't called, so water under the bridge. And then Seba Mendez, who I think surprised some people. Hey, he's coming there. He played 2 or 3 great balls. So, again, Steve got it right. Regardless of who the players are that come off that bench, it seems like the right one. But Mahala is a very special situation.
Yeah.
He scored that incredible goal.
I get it. I see where Taylor's coming from. You take out Chicho and you bring in Mahala, and now you don't have a reference point. But the way LAFC was just taking it to Austin, you needed some legs, and Chicho, before he came out, was gassed. He really couldn't press anymore, and that was what was so good, the ability to step up and press and put them under pressure. So I think
that embrace from Steve and Chicho. That was a moment I got a little emotional when that happened.
Yes, he got his goal. He was a little gassed. I think Mahala was the right choice, and then you get to take Carlos out just a little bit later. But it was the right call. Continue with what's working there. Get some speed up there. You're not really needing Chicho's not really holding up the ball for you because you're winning the ball up high, and then you're just going. So I understand where Taylor's coming from as a center forward. He's probably always thinking the way a center forward would think, and I get where his rationale is. But to your point, Steve knows his team and knows the changes and reads the game in such a way. It's just a higher level.
The one other thing I had with him is he kind of suggested that this game could have been contested. A lot of people on Twitter were saying that, hey, if a bowed bounce here, the penalty, VAR decision, the own goal, if this didn't happen, I go, no.
Just look at the stats.
No. This was a runaway. And even if the penalty was called, and even if the own goal went over the crossbar, LAFC wins this game. Austin
even
FC
if Ethan Finley plays for Rigoni.
Even if Ethan Finley starts ahead of
we're putting all of our eggs in the Ethan Finley basket.
Yeah,
like, come on, he's a good player, but not that.
They're saying Joshua May got the lineup wrong. I go, what?
No, I could just say you could understand that Rigoni likes to slow the game down, and Austin probably is going to need to play in a way that they need to go forward. But they just did not have the ball. They really did not have control of any field position of the ball. So there was the one moment where it really didn't play out for Rigoni was there was the one time where they did get in transition and he just went horizontal and tried. He passed up 2 guys to go horizontal, but by that time Ilie got back, Cheeky got back. They were all able to surround him, and that was just kind of the death knell for Rigoni, and he took him out shortly after. But I don't think it was going to matter. If it's Finley in that position, I don't think it's going to matter.
Hats off to Austin FC for pushing LFC and having a great season. So they had a great campaign, but this is where it was always going to end. And it did. One last thing, because we talked about it, was the discontent with people talking about, where's Gareth Bell, Christian Teo, these high-profile signings. Yeah, they didn't play here. Who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, we do care, but they are LAFC players. They will be LAFC players in all likelihood next season. We'll see about Teo.
They're there at the behest of the coach. If we don't need them, then you don't use them.
They made it. So why is there this pushback because they may have not played. It was like the big story. I go, wait a minute. LAFC qualified for MLS Cup.
Well, you got people
without Gareth Bale and
people
Christian Cheo playing in that game.
turning themselves inside and out like a pretzel, which they tend to do on Twitter with just the narratives. Yeah. Because remember what the narrative was coming into the season? How can you have Steve Cherundolo?
Yeah.
He's a first-year coach for these. Is he going to be able to tell Carlos Vela? Well, he's clearly able to tell Carlos Vela when he wants him to go sub in and out. He's able to dictate the terms to Gareth Bale and to Christian Cheo. And by the way, these guys they're on board. Like, we watch them at training. They're not sulking and walking around and being like, I can't believe I'm not getting into the game.
They're on board.
Like, they're on board. So, again, the narrative seemed to flip to whatever kind of catering people for this week. But I would say, I look, do you want to see would you love to see a swan song Gareth Bale show up and score like the game winner in MLS Cup final? Yeah. But if he doesn't and LFC still wins, it's not a storyline.
Still there. He's still training. And like you said, they're on board. You come in here, they're happy. They're here. They know they're part of something big. And you see it in them.
And his contract is guaranteed this summer. He'll be back next year. We'll see him, and we'll see what happens.
So don't worry about it. Don't worry. It'll happen when it'll happen. And it's still there in the pocket for next year. Maybe he takes off. So there you go. This is going to be an incredible week, and we are now going to return with some of your favorite LAFC players. We're going to talk to them all week. Get ready. Ask them the questions about what their anticipations are. Get their reactions about Austin FC. Whatever you like. Inside LAFC, MVP podcast all week with the team ahead of their first MLS Cup. We're back here at LAFC PC, Inside LAFC MVP podcast. Thrilled to be joined by Sebastien Ibeagha. We're going to talk about the Tuesday game, Sebastian, but I gotta start with the big question. Sunday game.
Today's Tuesday.
Today's Tuesday, and then Saturday.
You're doing great.
Great, we're off to a good start. But I got to talk to you about Sunday's game.
Yes.
When you get word that at half you're going to come in, your reactions, what does one do to be biggest game, obviously, in your MLS career, to go in there? To get the notification that you're going in second half, Western Conference Final?
Honestly, business as usual. I think the way we train and the way I've trained with Steve and this whole staff, they trust me 100%. And I feel that trust, and I'm super confident in my abilities and know that I'm able to hold it down whenever we need it. And that's kind of what my mentality was going in. And yeah, obviously big game, a little bit of nerves when you first step in, but I got literally the first, I think off the kickoff, I got a header and I was like, all right, we're settled in, let's go. Like, yeah.
Yeah, they did send a long ball right to you, and I was like, thanks.
Yeah, I was like, perfect.
Dig that.
Like, this is exactly what I needed. Thanks.
And let's be honest, as Max said, it was a big game, so I think a lot of people are maybe putting added emphasis to it, but you've had to come in a couple instances this year, kind of cold, in big moments, and have a big performance. So I want to ask you, have you had to like change your kind of mindset, or you said business as usual, but it's got to be weird, right?
It is, but I mean, it's been kind of part of my role, not only here but at New York for a while as well. So it's just kind of accepting your role as a player and understanding that, I mean, it's more than just 11, right? We have 7 guys on the bench for a reason, and you can be called upon. I mean, Mahala did it, came in, scored the 3rd goal, killed them, and it's just stuff like that. Is understanding your role and just being a part of the team instead of thinking selfishly or, you know, just that, I'm unhappy because of this and that. So that's kind of what it is like you said, I've had to step in at certain times this season, and that's kind of just what my role has become here, and I'm happy with it, and we've obviously done well with it, so I can't really complain.
Has that always been your personality, though? Like, could you, if you were like your younger self was here and you were like, look, man, this is what we're going to end up doing, what would your younger self say about like the kind of the role that you've taken on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'd be upset, but he'd obviously, you know, think he'd be like a starter day in and day out.
Look, every player wants to start.
Exactly, yeah.
But there's certain that's what I'm saying. It's something you got to turn over in your brain, it feels like.
And just kind of numb it out and understand that this is the team that has been picked. This is the 11. Doesn't really mean that you're not good enough or not, but you can still be called on at any point, and you have to make a difference or keep the level up as it was in that Austin game,
But I see that collectively, and forgive me that it shocks me a bit because maybe from my very low-level athletic prowess and some of the times I watch all Sports Center, you're watching these players that aren't playing, they're like kind of, but to a man, everyone here is on board, and it's obviously coming from the coach. Everyone's like, we understand this role. We are ready for whenever you're picked to put in there. Is that a unique thing? I guess collectively when you see it and the communication from Steve on down to you guys, what's it like to keep you guys constantly engaged? Because we see it game to game. If it's not you, it is Mahala. If it's not Mahala, it's Franco. It's someone always coming in.
Yeah, I think it's a huge nod to the coaching staff. They've done a very good job I don't want to call it egos, because I don't really actually think we have a lot of egos.
I don't sense that here.
Yeah, we
which
have
is
a lot of
crazy,
big
'cause you're
players, but it's not egos. It's just kind of confidence. And everyone does a good job in, giving everyone that confidence. And I think that's kind of what it is. So it doesn't matter whether I'm playing or Giorgio or Ryan or Franco. We all push each other in the same manner because we all want the same goal at the end of the day.
Let's talk about the actual game and what went on in the game. You don't have to get into specifics, but I think it was pretty obvious what the game plan was.
Yeah.
And Steve even comes out and says that to me was the best we played all season. I mean, you were here all week going through what they were taking you through and the instructions. So for you, did you guys literally just go down the list and you're like, we nailed every single thing we needed to do?
I mean, basically, yeah. I mean, I was telling someone today it was one of the best, I think, weeks of training that we've had. Just from a top to bottom, everyone was engaged, everyone was working, everyone was, talking everything. And so it was just kind of stuff on the training pitch just flowing over into the game, and it just was perfect. And I think, like Steve said, it was, I think, the best that we've played as well, even without the ball too.
Yeah.
Those extra days, because you mentioned that full week. You got a full week. You
Yeah.
played the Galaxy Thursday, and I think some people say 10 days too much. Did the 10 days feel just about right because you got that full week?
Yeah, I think if you schedule it correctly, we had, I think it was 2 days off, 3 days of training, a day off, and 4, something like that. And I think the way they scheduled it, it was perfect because we were still able to get our normal 4 days into a game and everything like that. So I don't think it was too much as long as you schedule it correctly.
How were you guys able to keep that level so high, though? Because honestly, I'm watching that first half, and you guys are playing so well, and I was telling everyone, I was nervous coming into it, and then literally 10 minutes in, I was like, I feel pretty good because they're playing so well. But I kept thinking, okay, halftime, there's going to be a little bit of response. And there was, really only because you guys gave up a few set pieces.
Yes, yeah.
Not necessarily them getting the play on you,
Yeah.
but after you guys kind of got your footing and we're like, okay, our foot's back on the ball, it was right back to 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And the ability at this point in the season to go 100 miles an hour for 90 minutes, I'm speechless, to be honest with you. And, did you know that you guys could do that?
I personally didn't think we could for 90, for a full 90.
It felt like 90, right?
Yeah, it's a tough thing to do. You ask any team to press for 90 minutes, absolutely not. But, yeah, I was shocked too. And now that I know we can do it, now we have no excuse going forward, no matter, obviously, this next game, but even going into next season and all these other games. We have no excuse. We know we can do it, especially in the big situations, which is the most important.
I love that you push it to next season, too.
Yeah.
You're like,
Wow,
dude,
sure.
we're not
You
talking
have
about
to.
just one next
Not
game.
very far
This is
off
the
the radar.
This is a
either.
legacy.
Of
We
course.
keep going. We go to
Always.
have Champions League. We
Yes.
can do this again.
Yeah.
In the game, whether it was Giorgio or Jesus, Cheeky or Ryan Hollingshead or yourself, the defenders played such a positive role in the attack. There's a higher
Yes.
line, obviously, these balls. Obviously, that's part of the game plan, but that's got to be exciting for you, defender, and also intimidating in ways because you need to have that whole round game. But you guys, there's just playmaking going on right there.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a big thing. We have a certain style we want to play. Everyone knows that. But some teams, they know that, and they'll try to stop that. And we have to be dynamic in the ways that we can hurt teams. And, yeah, us playing out of the back, Murray had a couple, I think 2 or 3 really, really good through balls on Sunday. And that's kind of another threat that teams may not, look to as much because maybe we don't do it as much. But it's always in the locker for
It's
sure.
a big weapon, too.
Yeah.
Because
With
not everyone
Denis
can
on
do
the
it.
left?
Yeah, with Denis popping in there.
It's trouble. That's all I got to say.
We got to ask you about it because we'd be remiss to have you here or not. I'm going to ask you about it from this vantage point. I saw you after the game talking to Brad Stuver, and I saw you moving your foot, and so I could tell exactly what we were talking about.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the penalty. It looked like what you were talking about was you're like, look, I put my foot down, but I did not put any force into it and raised it up real quick.
Yeah.
So there's nothing there.
Yeah, it was. I basically said, Fagundes brushed my big toe. I put it there, and I was like, oh, I'm not getting ball, so I pulled out, and he took a step and then fell, and so I was just kind of I could see why it looks like a penalty.
That's the problem with
anything
VAR,
in
by the
slow-
way.
anything
That's
in
the
slow-mo
problem.
looks like a penalty.
And I was more upset that we played on. The ref called it because he was down, and
he
then
refused
took
to
that
Yep.
time to then look at the VAR, and I was like, wait, but we didn't stop playing. You called it dead. So that's what we were just talking about. But yeah, if it was called a penalty, I'd be like, that is a very light penalty to call in this type of situation.
Mm-hmm.
But
Referee agree with you.
yeah, he did, and I was like, thank God.
You got to be nervous when they go to that monitor.
I hate that monitor.
Wait.
I hate it.
Well, especially as an LAFC player. It just seems like anytime the monitor's involved, it's not going to be good for us.
And I even saw it on the big screen after. I was like, it looks a lot worse on the big screen than it did right there. So, yeah.
I thought that was a cool moment, though. Seeing
It was.
you talking to Stuver. I saw you with your former teammate, Alexander Ring.
They're good guys, and I mean, big props to Austin. From what they did from last year to this year, it's wild.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you don't see that often from a franchise. So, yeah, I have huge respect for that club and those players as well too.
Same with us here, and we can't say that enough. That they really pushed you guys.
Yeah,
it really
for
helped
sure.
you reach another level this season with the 2 regular season games leading into this. New York City FC were MLS Cup champions last year. I have to imagine from you see that was your team and they're celebrating, and now you get your chance here. And obviously, one more game, but just your emotions, knowing all those guys on the team. Obviously, very happy for them, but knowing that maybe you could have had that moment. Now you might get that moment.
Yeah.
How are those emotions checked in there?
I mean, it's an exciting time for sure. I mean, like you just said, I wish I was there. But funny story, in preseason, I was in the weight room, and John walks up and he goes, "Sorry, obviously we traded for you." And I was like, "Nah, it's cool, whatever." And then he goes, "But we'll get you one this year." And now we have the opportunity to get one. So I'm super excited and, ready to work and just fight it out, yeah.
John Thornton always delivers. Look at that.
He said it in January.
John doesn't talk a lot, but when he does say something to you, you're like, yeah, I'm on board. All right, I'm in. You guys, after the game, we noted the celebration was like literally like raise it, let's go, get it in the locker room, and it seems like it's been that way. Even the Galaxy game, got it done, let's go. How have you seen that? I don't think it's a maturation. You guys are already all mature, but just the way you guys are holding yourselves in every moment and just the focus, laser focus on the goal. How have you seen that?
No, it's been good. I mean, we've always said. Since playoffs started, we're like 3 games. That's what it is. We have to play 3 games. And now we're 2 down, we have 1 more, and that's kind of how we kept looking. It was great to win Supporters Shield, obviously great to win the Western Conference Final and be Western Conference champs. But now the big test is, the next one, and that's kind of what we're looking at and how focused we are on it.
Something that sticks out from this playoff run that you take, obviously the big game coming up on Saturday, but just being able to share that with these guys.
Yeah, I don't know. It's too many things. This is my first deep playoff run. So, I feel like at the end of the day, you always just remember all the guys you're with. You know what I mean? And that's the thing, the camaraderie that you get, and just fighting beside each other and winning. I think the Austin game, just as a whole, winning a game that big with the guys that you've been with for 8, 9 months, 10 months, that's kind of the cherry on top.
What about the reaction from obviously the supporters, but something different when walking around town? I'll give an example. At the airport, there's all these MLS Cup logos and so forth.
Nice.
It's very exciting. But it feels, we've been with this league, and some of these MLS Cups may, and it's still early in the week, Tuesday may not resonate, but this one certainly feels a little different.
MLS Cup in LA was bound to happen at some point, right? So, and at our stadium at the Bank, it's going to be insane, and it's going to be exciting, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So I can't wait. Yeah.
I can't wait.
We all can't wait. That's why we're going to be here all week.
Take your time. Enjoy the week, though.
That's how we're killing time, because if you and I had too much time on our hands, God help us.
We will be here all week with the players, with the club. We're very excited about it. We get great conversations with quality people like Sebastian Ibeagha. So rate, review, download, subscribe, tell a friend. We'll see you again Wednesday and throughout the week, leading all the way to MLS Cup on a Saturday. See you soon.
On the door, and they finally kicked it through.